If you are a wise person, you're going to judge yourself way harsher than anybody else. The one who is making progress feels it the least. Now, that is not a direct Stoic quote, but it is a paraphrase from Epictetus. It's an idea that he discusses, though those may not be the exact wording that he uses. But the point here is that a lot of times our perception of ourselves, our self-perception, is inaccurate. A lot of times the way that we feel we are moving or not moving, our own strengths, our own weaknesses, is not actually how we perceive them. And this is by design. Imagine the person who is extremely conscientious, someone who works their butt off. They're working their butt off all the time. They're conscientious. And because they're conscientious, their psyche, their mind, is constantly telling them, you are not working hard enough. Work harder, work harder, work harder, work harder. Now, from the outside, observers of this person would look at them and think, he has no butt. He has literally worked his butt off. Literally. But to the person that is very conscientious, they are never working hard enough. They are never getting enough done. They are never as systematic as they want to be. So to Epictetus' paraphrase, the one who is making progress feels it the least, points to this idea that if you're someone who feels like you are making a lot of progress, you might not actually be doing it. And if you are someone who feels like you're making no progress, you might actually be making progress. The very idea that you want to move forward, that drive, that ambition alone means that you are constantly evaluating yourself and you are looking at your shortcomings, your failures. Whereas someone who is not concerned with that, they never would. So if you ask someone, are you moving forward in life? They might say yes. But someone who is actually moving forward in life, they might say, no, like it feels like I'm always struggling. Because something interesting happens when you are trying to improve at something. You make a list of the things you need to improve, you fix those, and then you move on to the next things that need to improve. And there's an infinite number of things that need to improve in your life. This is a very interesting idea because it tells us that, again, self-perception is not everything, and so you need to have some idea of where you actually stand versus your feelings versus objectivity. But to translate this in a modern sense, you might say that if you feel behind in life, it may be because your standards have risen faster than your self-image. You may be just asking more and more and more and more of yourself. You're not simply stagnant. It's just every time you move forward a mile, the goalpost keeps moving. And to be honest, to be frank with you, dear Stoics, that is the way to be. If you're going to be anyway, it's going to be someone who's always looking for improvement in character. At work, in the gym, anything. No matter what you're doing, move towards excellence. But be cautious that you're aware of that, because what that can make it seem like is that you're not moving forward. So you have to be objective about yourself. You have to be able to see where the goalpost is moving and be conscious of it. But the fact that the goalpost moves is actually a good thing in and of itself. It means you're always asking more of yourself. But this feeling of I'm not progressing, I'm not moving forward, it allows us, or it forces us to feel inadequate. Let me give you this quote from Epictetus, another one. Discourses 1.2. If you seek progress, be content to be thought foolish and inadequate. If you want to move forward in anything, if you want to get good at basketball, you have to be willing to look like a terrible basketball player. If you want to be wise, you have to be willing to appear foolish. Because it's only through making mistakes that we actually learn how to move forward and progress and grow. If you want to get better, you have to do things that you don't normally do. You have to be things that you don't normally be. And because you don't normally be them or you're not there yet, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to fail, and you're going to look foolish, and you're going to feel inadequate. So this is one of those weird situations I talked about earlier where our feelings don't always line up with reality. Progress requires stepping into roles where you haven't yet stabilized. If you have stabilized, it wouldn't be progress. Progress, by definition, is venturing out into something new. The Stoics expected insecurity during role expansion. Let me ask you this. Let's say you're sitting down with Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, and you're telling him, Mr. Aurelius, I feel inadequate. I feel like I'm failing. I feel like I'm not doing my job very well. I'm very insecure about my new role. I have imposter syndrome. And Marcus Aurelius, he looks at you and he asks you, okay, well, how long have you been in this role? I've been in the role about 3 months. And he would smile at you kindly and he would remind you that you just stepped into this role. What do you expect? Do you expect to be able to just handle everything as soon as you get it? No, it takes time to stabilize, to get better, to optimize. The moment you stop feeling inadequate is the moment you've stopped stretching. When you feel like you're good enough and you're doing okay, it means you're not growing anymore. And so you could say that feeling inadequate is kind of a byproduct of improving. Because when you're improving, you're looking at where you are missing the mark. Hey there. Let me thank you for being a listener to this ad-free podcast. If you enjoy the podcast, there are a few things you can do to help me out. A 5-star review on Spotify or wherever you're listening to this really does help, and it's free. You can also sign up for my Substack newsletter or Patreon. Substack free gets each episode emailed to you along with the transcripts in the form of an article. You'll also get access to my live talks, followed by a Q&A afterward. Substack Premium supporters and my patrons on Patreon get access to the recordings and a brief article of those Q&A sessions, access to full episodes of the Paradoxically Speaking podcast, my Steps to Success interview series, Stoic meditations, and much more. Links to Substack and Patreon can be found in the show notes. Now, there's another angle of this which is interesting, and it's when we let people down, or at least feel like we're letting people down. It's bad enough we let ourselves down, or feel like we are, but what about your team? What about your family? Marcus Aurelius says in Meditation 7.7, do not be ashamed of needing help. Do not be ashamed of needing help. Remember, that's Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome. He's carrying the weight of an empire. And he is telling himself and everyone else, though he didn't know he was telling everybody else, do not be ashamed of needing help. Feeling stretched, feeling like you're letting people down, like you're letting yourself down, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're failing. It could. Maybe you are failing. Maybe you're doing a terrible job. But more realistically, you're bearing responsibility. You're doing as best as you can with what you've been given, or at least trying. Maybe not perfectly, but you're aiming up. And just because you feel like you're stretched does not mean you're failing. Let me give you a great gym analogy. Ooh, imagine a gym analogy on the Strong Stoic. So, when you're going for a max PR, let's use the squat, because we always use the squat, because I love squats, because I'm a crazy person. Let's say you pick up a weight you've never squatted before. You back up a couple feet, you set your feet, you brace your core, and you do the squat. So you're successful. You did it. Awesome. Great. But you've noticed, maybe watching the video or maybe you felt it, that your knees were bloody shaking. Your knees were just vibrating like crazy. You felt very unstable. Now the proof is in the pudding. The proof is you lifted that weight. You bore that responsibility. Even though it didn't feel like it. So feeling unstable does not mean you are not strong. Feeling unstable doesn't mean you are weak. It just means that you're feeling the weight of what you have to bear. In the same way, when you're being stretched at work, or maybe your character, maybe life's testing you a little bit right now. Maybe life is just throwing some terrible, crazy, wild things at you, and you're struggling with it. You're struggling with your stoicism. You're struggling to get your thoughts down on paper. You feel anxious. You feel angry. That doesn't mean that you're failing. It just means that your knees are shaking a little bit because you have a heavy load right now. That's okay. You're going to feel like that a lot in life. So, tough luck, man. Best get used to it. Now, I want to lead into feeling reactive versus actually being conscientious. Anxiety is a sign of attachment to outcomes. Now, anxiety in and of itself is not a big issue. We all feel anxious from time to time. But high performers, such as yourself, anticipate consequences. Low performers don't feel anxious because they don't see downstream effects. Awareness creates stress. Ignorance creates calm. Again, one of these situations in which our perception does not align with reality. Those who are anxious, a lot of times are aware of the issues at hand, and so they're stressed about it. Those who are ignorant, who have no idea, they're in, ignorance is bliss, as they say. They're in just a calm mood because they don't even know what's out there. Now let's go back to meditations. Let's go back to Marcus Aurelius. Because when you're feeling uncertain, it can be hard to actually practice wisdom. Meditations 8.47. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Oh, if we could only remember that every bad thing that happens to us is just a feeling. It's just a feeling. It's an emotion. Maybe we get some physical pain. Yeah, whatever. Guess what? Physical pain is still just a feeling. Uncertainty is not weakness. It's accurate perception in complex systems. Complex systems. Give me one. Life. How complicated is life? Confidence without uncertainty is often ignorance. If you don't have any antidote, any idea of what's uncertain in your approach to whatever it is, that's often ignorance. So confidence, there's room for a little bit of uncertainty in a confident Stoic. Now, what I will say is that when we are in these roles that stretch us, when our perceptions don't align with reality and we're not even aware of it, it's good to understand, it's good to have clarity. On Corinthians 17. Ask yourself, what is my role here? And then do it. So when you go to work in the morning, if this is how you start your day, with this stoic clarity, what is my role here? That's what I got to do. So I do it. But it's important to separate the role itself, what is required of me in this role that I've chosen to take on, versus the expectation, what you imagine you should be. Roles, what is required, versus expectations, what you make up in your mind. Emotional fog comes from confusing those two. What is my role here, and then do it? What is appropriate, and then do it? Now I'm going to leave you with this lovely quote from Seneca. Yes, I'm turning to Seneca now. Because Seneca has this awesome idea. And this again is a paraphrase. It's an idea that was extracted from a couple letters. It's interesting how a paraphrase can often be more like the author than the individual quote. Isn't that fascinating? It's an abstracted idea of what Seneca in this case was trying to say. The wise man is his own harshest judge, but also his fairest. The wise man is his own harshest judge, but also his fairest. If you are a wise person, you're going to judge yourself way harsher than anybody else. But you're also going to be fair with yourself. You're also going to understand your shortcomings. You're also going to understand and have love for yourself at the same time. You can be your own harshest judge, and you can also give yourself a lot of grace. You can have both. Self-criticism becomes distortion when it loses proportionality, when you have the judgment without the understanding, the judgment without the love. Stoic self-review, journaling, looking at yourself in the mirror. It's not punishing. We don't aim to punish ourselves, to make ourselves feel bad, to beat ourselves up. It's corrective. So when you journal at night, when you journal in the morning, and you're looking back at your day, and you're picking out your flaws, and you're finding your warts, it's not about punishing yourself for having those. It's about correcting your path going forward. It's about these little tiny tweaks that you make on the way to a better life. So let's go through the Stoic reversal test here. When you feel like you're failing, ask yourself, have my responsibilities increased? Have my standards increased? Am I more aware of consequences than before? If the answer is yes, then this is growth, not failure. Let me leave you with this last one. It gets to this idea I love, this idea that if you want to wish somebody something, a young person, a son, a daughter, what do you want for them? Do you want them to have an easy life, or do you want them to have a difficult life and have the strength to deal with a difficult life? Epictetus says, progress is not achieved by seeking comfort, but by tolerating discomfort. So remember, dear listeners, that all these feelings we're talking about, this anxiety and feeling of helplessness and that we're inadequate, we're not enough, they're just feelings. They're just feelings. And if you can tolerate those feelings, if you can tolerate that discomfort, that's how you make progress.